we're here with lwise. He's one of my favorite instructors from G.I.T. He's written many books, been a professional player forever, pretty much, since he was a teenager. So I'm really happy for you to be here and talking to me on this. Is there anything you want to say at the
No,
introduction?
it's thank you, and I'm so proud of you and all the stuff you've done, and now you're a soldier of fortune, incredible player, and all those skills and all that. Yeah, it's great to see, to see all that productivity and pay it forward. So here's me and Van Halen.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah. So there's Eddie on the left, drinking a beer. John Mock and me.
Yeah.
So
So
these photos were taken in around 84, around the time they were going to do the 10 book.
yeah, yeah, and you guys, I'm sure, had a lot of famous players come into seminars. I know there's, some while I was there, but yeah, between all the years you were there, I'm sure you met a lot of people.
Yeah, we had most of the guitar players I mean, there was the guys that lived in town, Steve
Yeah,
Lithica and all of them, and there was the Vise and all them that came, and then of course he helped promote, Satriani, and so Satriani, and we had yeah, tons of people eventually showed up. I mean, there's so many. I'll probably have to
yeah,
compile a list, but we had some other stuff that were even, I think, around your time.
yeah.
Let me see. I'm going to pull up another photo really quick because I think,
I remember, like, when I was there, Joe Pass came into the seminar, and
yeah, he
which,
would. Yeah, Joe Pass and all of them would be there all the time. Yeah,
yeah,
he would come when he's out of town, when he wasn't touring, kind
yeah,
of before he did the Ella thing, because then with the Ella stuff, he went into some other level because she worked like 10 million hours a day. But here's well, I'll show you here. In any case, so then when we did the 10 book, right?
mhm,
So part of that thing with Van Halen, let me see if he's wearing the same outfit. Yeah, I think he is. So you see the outfit Van Halen's wearing, right?
mhm, yeah,
Then you look here, it's the same outfit. You see right here.
yep, yep,
So this is the first part. What happened? I mean, there's tons of GI history from the 70s, 80s, but this is around 84, right? So
sure,
what happens? They decide to do 10 guitar players, and not that you haven't ever seen the book, right? So they decide to do it, and we go, okay, let's do this. So what happened? Pat Martino was supposed to be here, but with the brain thing he had, then he left. Okay. So then they got Joe Pass to do it. So, and as you see right here, you see Joe Pass and everybody. And so Joe is right here, and
yeah,
Robin Ford, Don Mock, Jay Graydon, produced all those things, and it goes on and on. So here's what happens. First, I'm going to tell you like an insider story. So they're
sure,
doing the 10 book, right? So
mhm,
this 10 book is a wooden table. And in the 80s, what was one of the most famous movies? Star Wars.
yeah,
So you see how the book, which is a table, it's a wooden table,
mhm, yeah,
keeps getting wider and wider.
sure,
So as the text comes towards you from the bottom half, it's wider than the top, right? Okay.
yeah,
So here's what happens. First, the guitar stars, right? First, it's Howard Roberts' school, okay?
mhm,
Jay Graydon has $1 million studio in the Valley. Larry's super ass famous, and
mhm,
here is Tommy together. So here's the first thing they want to do. Those guys go, they're doing the book. We already know that they're friends. We want to sit at the head of the table. So are they at the head of the table? Okay, so they're jammed here. Here's Larry jammed in. Larry goes, because Larry had won a Grammy or something. I'm at the head of the table. So they did this right here. So Don, being the nice guy, goes, I don't care where I sit. So he sits over here, okay? So as they jam the table up, I go, Ronnie, where do you want to sit? But I'm with Eddie, right? And so Eddie goes, Les, look, just forget it. Why don't you sit next to me? So I sit behind Eddie, okay? So a couple of benefits happen. Over the years, most of these people, the average guitar player won't know who they are, but Eddie did. They go, God, are you friends with Eddie? So that was the
mhm,
first thing. Then number two, when they listed the thing, Larry goes, I want a Grammy. I want my name first. Is Larry's name first in the name?
mhm,
He's number one.
yeah,
Joe Pass out of just, Joe wouldn't ask for it. They go, well, Joe, you're up there because you're like superstar in your category.
Hmm.
Tommy, of course, he's in there. Diorio, whatever. Mock goes, I don't care. Robin Ford goes, who cares? And
Yeah.
Jay Graydon or whatever. Eddie goes, I don't care. I'll be last. So let me ask you something first about Eddie's name. Is it wider than Larry Carlton's?
Yeah.
Because of
It's
the
first thing
Star
is,
Wars effect. And then, so then they go, well, let's just put your name down here. And I'm down here and can sing better than the name that's buried up here. Okay.
yeah. Right.
So that's the first thing. Then when you look at this photo, the one that they took, we're
Hmm.
all having fun, right? Everybody's laughing at you, but here's why they're laughing. What happened, Jay Graydon, studio guitar player, right? But he has a studio and he's producing people, or, he's producing, uh, I forgot the bands he was producing, but he was producing George Benson too. But before that, he was producing like, I forgot the names of bands, but he's producing people. And so he's making money.
Right.
So Tommy in the studios, maybe who knows exactly, but at the time, maybe they're making a couple of $100,000, right?
Sure.
So he goes, Jay Graydon, he looks straight ahead now, but that's why Howard's even working. He goes, Tommy, I made $600,000 a year. $600,000 last year. And Tommy only made two. Okay. So there's Tommy, two. Here's 600K. So it's 1984. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's one problem with this story. Okay. The very second, that's why he has his arms crossed, and these guys, including Ronnie and everybody, are laughing their ass off. Is you see how Eddie has his arms crossed here?
Hmm.
Bumped his arm into it and he goes, Les, after they're talking, right? They're talking, they're joking around, waiting for the next photograph, and everybody's kidding around. Les, watch this. He had just turned to them and he went, last year I made $8 million because he was at the height of his career.
Right.
So that's why they're laughing, because he outdid all of them. I made more money in the last 6 months than most people make in the whole room. So he said, I made $8 million. And that's why everybody were like, they go, okay, smile now. See how he's grinning? And the
Hmm.
other, and over here, they're laughing their ass off here. And Tommy, because Tommy likes to just go back and forth with people, how he did stuff. In any case, so this is what happened in that instant.
Yeah.
With the because Jay Graydon was out kidding Tommy. Now I'm making more money than you at that moment, right? And
Right.
Larry didn't say anything. He's a pretty calm guy anyway. But he definitely, so he wanted to be at the beginning. Star Wars failed out when the last three guys on the block at the end, right? I
Yeah.
don't care where you sit, Les. Sit behind me. So everybody went, yeah, I can see Les. He's right next to Van Halen. And
Yeah.
then, of course, with Larry Carlton. But in any case, that was why they're laughing. So the reason I brought that up, because there's like an inside joke with this stuff that it was like, yeah. So there's your first insider stuff
Yeah.
with the joke. And then from the organized standpoint, when they did it, Don helped Eddie, do his chapter, which you've seen. You have the 10 book, right?
Yeah. I do.
Yeah. But in any case, so he helped him do his chapter, which was great. And he took all the photos in his house. He was all stoked. So Don Mock's girlfriend, who's his wife, Kathy, she was the one in production of this. So she said, look, we're writing a book and we need you to do stuff or whatever. So everybody, whatever, did a chapter. The thing is, she told me that we're going to do the book, right?
Hmm.
And this is before we ever took the pictures. She goes, okay, Les, everybody needs to write a chapter. So now you'll appreciate this more from your teaching perspective. They go, okay, no problem at all. I got something I think I want to do. So she told me on Wednesday, and Friday I go, here's my chapter. So the book didn't come out for 11 months later, but mine was already written.
Yeah.
And then the pictures, and so then everybody did their other stuff. So yeah, it's so in any case, it was cool,
Yeah.
but I'm saying this is all the camaraderie. So during that camaraderie, other stuff happened later on. They had beers, people are hanging out
Yeah.
and stuff. This might have even been the next day, and there
Yeah.
were Van Halen came in again because he'd be hanging out and stuff, when he wasn't traveling and all that.
Sure.
And then, of course, back to this photo for a second. So then this is just the guys hanging out, and they do the photo of, Pat and all them when he was there. And that was Pat's Ovation guitar, his own model, the Pat Martino Ovation
Sure.
model guitar. Jody, or everybody's happy. And it was just a big, big family. That's all we were, was a big family, which you were part of. So
Sure.
the other thing with the students that would come, you'd have students that would come to the school, others couldn't afford to go.
Right.
Some would come to the school, and we had others from Europe that they could afford to go to the school, but they didn't. They were married, and they didn't want to take their kids out of school.
Right.
So that
Sure.
was one thing. And then the distances were so large, so they didn't want to do that. So which you've heard those stories too. Secondly, I'd have some students that would go to the school, and they were having trouble with drugs, but
Mm.
no one knew it, right? But they had drugs. And when the school ended, I go, so what are you going to do when you get out of GIT? And maybe you had some in your class too. They would go, well, I don't think I'm going to play guitar. I'm going to go back into my father's business or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But it helped me get off of drugs. So I'm
Oh,
not a drug, but so I love guitar and it'd be in my heart. So some people did that because they were it
yeah.
just allowed it. So it became this incredible experience that they just wanted to be part of, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I mean, for me, I moved cross country to go there. I just had the 1 year lease on my apartment, so I moved right back as soon as it ended. But what was kind of crazy to me is seeing how nonchalant or not serious some students took it. I mean, some students were, of course, super serious on, but
Yeah.
on like you get towards the end of the year in the summer, and a lot of people just stop showing up, and it's like, why are you passing up these experiences where you can see all these great players every day, and and you're not even coming anymore. And some of them just came there. It seemed like to get in a band or something to network, and then they went off and did their own thing on it. But you
Yeah.
know, it just not making the most of it in some cases, I think.
Yeah.
It's
Well, and to your point, that's a good point. So there's a couple of things happen. There was years when people didn't show up for the class. So the school, Pat Hicks and everybody, we all started getting concerned that some people weren't showing up and they wouldn't get the curriculum from the teachers and teaching the class. Now, it might have been after you, but so what happens, they came up with the idea to record every class.
Mhm.
So that's why all the core curriculum was videotaped. It was a little logistical problem because the teachers go, we got to get paid for it. So they paid us by the hour to do that, even though in the end, all the tapes together were worth like $20 million. And they
Mhm.
probably paid like 150 to the teachers
Yeah.
over 4 years to do it. But they set up the video studio and they record all of it. So a guy, either a European guy that wants to practice all day, but he doesn't want to miss the class,
Yeah.
then he would then he would then he could watch the video. The second part is some students where it was too high for them, I told them to become a secretary or a court reporter.
Mhm.
Every piece of curriculum for the year, record every class and keep all of that and then go home
Yeah.
and study it over the years.
Yeah.
Then there's the reality. Number three, all that stuff to really be comfortable underneath your fingers, unless you either knew half of it, you already could play, is 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
means if you leave on this date, if you religiously did this stuff before the stuff becomes second nature to you, it's 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
If you did everything, sometimes people didn't. They wanted to play, they wanted the identity, they wanted to do whatever. So there's another part that you're learning information, but no one can learn,
Mhm.
in other words, and here's the other thing too, in improvising, rock, fusion, jazz, whatever the styles are, but um, normally really incredible musicians like ourselves that can really play, right, and really do the thing, is that a lot of times there's like 1,000 concepts, right?
Mhm.
But most of the time, the greatest players take 30 or 40 of those concepts and they master those and not the 1,000. So,
Right.
which you're totally aware of with
Yeah.
all the skills you have over the years. And so, but in the beginning, that was you're in there, and so you're trying to get everything you can, and that's what it's all about. Famous musicians, many of them have like three techniques and they just did that for the rest of their life and they don't do anything else. They don't play any differently. They don't do any differently. But what they do, they got so good at those three techniques. And so
Right.
that's part of the thing. So in a way, the school, but what happened, the school itself and the whole concept was to give people professional, real training, uh, and give us everything we knew because we were like come on in. You know all those stories, whether it's a guy that taught Rocky in the movie, the old man said, I'm going to teach you everything. But so that's what they did. And that was the whole goal of it, to just give you everything. And the thing is, because some people didn't connect with the curriculum because it
Mhm.
was incredible, the stuff out of the Howard Roberts seminars and really great stuff. But because there was guys that are other levels, not so much they were above that, but some stuff they already knew. So every teacher in the beginning, it was only Joe and I, Ronnie, and a few others, and Don, where we're supplementing. But then we wrote our own stuff and then we supplemented it, or we added or stretched it and did all of this. And that's where we started with the 3-bedroom house. And by the time we finished, it was a small high school. In other words, we stretched the buildings and put plywood up, and so that was the intent of it, to give you everything, and the
Yeah, and when I went there, it was definitely the level I was at when I started. It was very overwhelming on a lot of this stuff, but that's okay because I'd say the first quarter I probably got better by 100%. It's because I was exposed to so much things. Even though always had the desire to learn, I didn't have the knowledge available to me back then, without the internet or anything like that. So once I was given it, I couldn't absorb it all, but I was absorbing it at such a higher rate than I was before I got there. But yeah, and I just realized, as I was going through the year, that I know I'm not going to get everything down, but I'm still going to attend the classes and try and get as much as I can, because you get into that second half of the year when you're getting into the more style stuff. And I was taking your jazz improv, I was doing the chord melodies, doing the super chops, of doing all these classes at the same time. It's like I can't get all this stuff down at once, especially since I came in without much of a jazz background. I had studied some classical, I'd done rock, metal, blues, but I'd only had one quarter at university of a jazz class. And that was the first time I'd seen a real book, was in that class on it. So I got there and suddenly it's, so much that,
Yeah, you're totally correct. And look, back to the stuff in the beginning with Howard Roberts' accelerated learning and those early books he talked about, cybernetics, where you've read that book, haven't you?
I'm not sure if I have.
But basically it's a book on accelerated learning. And in
Mhm.
cybernetics, what happened, there was the surgeons and they were working on a woman. They were doing brain surgery, and one of the guys accidentally, not dropped from a high level, but he dropped some kind of tool that touched the gray matter of the brain in a certain part. And the woman, of course, they keep them awake while they're doing this. Was in the 50s.
Yeah.
She started recalling her whole life. And they went, there's something wrong. Now, 20 or 30 years later, by the time G.I.T comes, they had studied it and they realized that in the gray matter of your brain, you have 2 video cameras, 2 microphones, and a loudspeaker. You record every second of your life is recorded, even if you're not paying attention, a sound back here or whatever. So what happens when somebody has a true photographic memory, I mean, the total true, they remember every experience,
Sure.
they can just recall everything from the gray matter. While us, we have little parts and we have to reinforce it until they connect,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
So by you, see, here's the difference, and you mentioned this, by you just showing up for the class, you
Yeah.
turned on the infallible gray matter recorder that was already way beyond digital recorders. And so in there, it's in there, those experiences that then you can recall. And look, humans can suppress it. When people have
Yeah.
traumatic experiences, they suppress stuff, and then one day, whatever investigations are investigating something, and then somebody's able to bring the memory back, and it's like a picture because it's stored there. So
Right.
to what you just said was really good too. You go in there and you were actually recording it, you just didn't realize it.
Well, and the thing is, you pull stuff out of your subconscious that you don't even know where it came from, but you picked it up somewhere. I've had students come in and play me a lick that they thought, "Oh, this is really cool," and they'd be talking about it. It's like, I showed you that like a month ago, and they didn't remember that I had taught them that.
Didn't
They were
remember.
showing me this thing they're
Exactly.
proud of.
Because the brain, they've recorded everything. And look, even when
Right.
you pull up stuff that's out of nowhere,
Mhm.
sometimes you're tapping into the ithers, but a lot of times it was something you might have heard that you
Yeah.
never paid attention to. You could have been hanging out with your friends and somebody pulled up in a car and they were playing, but it recorded it, and then all of a sudden it connects. Yeah, isn't that
Yeah.
that's the
Right. Well, yeah, it's funny how your mind works. That once you learn something too. You start seeing it everywhere when it's always been everywhere, but you just didn't recognize it before that.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah, exactly. And they always use that analogy, like somebody loses a red scarf in the backyard of your house, and then it's a family gathering. They go, I lost my scarf or whatever. And so everybody starts looking, and you see red everywhere. Everything that was red starts showing up on your, yeah, it's
yeah.
a, definitely uh, definitely part of that. But yeah, that's fantastic. So obviously your experience was, so what kind of other fears did you have when you were there, or was it just fear of being
It was,
accepted or approved or?
yeah, I, it was mostly just trying to do so many different things I really hadn't done at all before that. I hadn't really done a lot of the advanced extended and altered chords and stuff on that. So I'm trying to do that while also doing, you know, more advanced scales and arpeggios I've never done, and then every other subject that we were doing. But for me, it was also just about the inspiration too. Just seeing the great players and stuff made me go home and practice, even if it wasn't always the curriculum, but just and it pushed me to really think about what I'm practicing. And because on my own I was arranging like some Paganini caprices too outside of the curriculum
Absolutely.
at the same
Incredible
time. So
studies. Yeah, yeah.
still doing other things in addition, even though I was overwhelmed with the school stuff, is combining everything on it. And but I think with this school, it really made me think about efficiency more so, and the body mechanics of playing, and really get into the precision of it. I mean, watching Frank Gambale, that's when I started economy picking. I'd only alternate picked before that. And so trying to switch over from that, which was kind of tough after doing, halfway through G.I.T, having done alternate picking my whole time up until
Yeah,
then.
yeah.
So,
And yeah,
I'd
you're right.
write
The
out
economy
that,
picking. Yeah.
yeah, so I'd write out the exact picking on the licks and stuff just to make sure I was actually being consistent, not reverting back to old habits and you know things like that. So so many different things I was trying to get down at once. The sweep picking, which I hadn't done before either, and
Yeah.
yeah,
And it's pretty amazing. He learned it when he was in New Zealand for a while with that teacher. But yeah, it's so strange. And the thing with the sweep picking is, in alternating picking, as you play clean, you want to keep going faster. And sweep picking, you want to make sure that everything is so precision, because if you don't, then it becomes sloppy sweep picking, where you can do one or two. And
right,
but they had a so here's the story. They had a French guy. I forgot his name too. I forgot what class he was in,
sure,
maybe 83, who knows. I
yeah,
can't remember the exact class, but in any case, he was a French guy, and he decided he was going to do sweep picking, but he was real like reserved and quiet and really a really nice guy, right?
sure,
No one saw him. He didn't go in any classes for months.
yeah,
And he sat there with Frank sweep pipping. And Frank had said, look, you've got to get down the movement and both directions perfectly. And then also when Frank would play 16th notes,
mhm,
he said, you've got to be able to play them not down, up, but up, down. So as fast as you can play up, down, if I go da 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 da, down, up, but instead you have to do the reverse of it. So he took it to heart, and he was afraid to play in front of anybody. So he just play really slow, this down up picking, the cross picking, where the distance between us, everything, like just totally, and no one heard from it. And then all of a sudden I get Steve Freeman goes, Les, and I forgot the guy's name.
mhm.
Shit, it's sad. Now I'll find the name, but he
It's
goes, "Hey,
okay.
you should hear him play now." I walk in the room and we sit down. "Well, what's going on anyway?" And for the next 10 minutes, he was Frank Gambale. Just as fast, not every exotic thing he does, just as fast, just as clean, the whole guitar sailing with, and Frank has that super precision, and now tons of people have. It's been going on forever, but super, it's like, and it was just like he was floating on air. We're like, oh my, because no one had seen it develop to that level, because Frank was still at the school, right? And he did it because he only did one thing,
Yeah,
and he did it in slow motion.
yeah, yeah. It's the
Yeah,
key to getting good at something is isolate and go slow and perfect it.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, exactly. And so, but any case, so, but like you said, and it reminded me that they had a acoustic bass player in the Ohio Symphony, and he had this really hard piece he had to learn where he has to play for 2 minutes. Really incredible solo. So when he finally played it, like a year later, whenever the next orchestra season was, uh, he played it perfect, got a standing ovation, 10 awards, and all kinds of stuff. And they said, "How'd you do it?" He said, I played it slow. You know how we play it slow, right? So he said, I took the piece, 2 minutes. So in the beginning, I played it so slow. And they go, "Well, how slow did you play?" Like 20 metronome marking 30, whatever. He played it where it took me 90 minutes to play from one beginning to the other without stopping. 90 minutes. So
Yeah.
I did 90 minutes, 88 minutes, 87, 86. But after 3 months, I'm down to I can do it in maybe 30 minutes. It's only 2 minutes.
Yeah.
But he had programmed this so perfectly
Yeah.
that now that and so yeah, and it's that same thing this French guy did. But yeah, it's I mean that's the whole fun, like you said, getting back to your point though, with the guitar and all the players, everybody gets inspired, and sometimes people go off and create their own niche, of things that they do, and like you said, well, then yeah, and you had people that inspired you besides, well, you have
Yeah.
friends that inspire you, the teachers do for sure, but somebody that's
Yeah. Yeah, and you remember one
in
guy
between
I
them.
saw it just sitting at the pool, and we were both playing guitar on it. And I didn't know him before that, but I saw him and he was playing like diagonally back this way, and I was like, "What's he doing?" I've never seen people play in that direction.
Yeah.
So, um, that inspired me to where I got back to my apartment. And I'm like, okay, I need to figure out how to do this. So then I'm going, okay, I can just take two notes per string, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, and play that way. So
Doing
that's
it, yeah, exactly, yeah.
how to do that was just by seeing him do it and then saying, okay, I have to figure out what that was on it. So just your random encounters on it with seeing things.
Yeah,
So
exactly. So everything is those memories you have of how people do things. Yeah, that's fantastic.
yeah, yeah. And used to go to open counselings for, like I said, Frank Gambale, Paul Gilbert, Jennifer Batten, Danny Gill, a bunch of the different players on that. So that was always inspiring on it. Um, I mean, that's something I actually wish I would have done more so because I never wanted to miss classes. A lot of times I had to choose between the open counseling and the classes. And, I'd take advantage of, because again, there was so little resources before I got there. I'd go in the library and watch the VHS tapes of the different ones they had on in the library and check out the sheet music and that they had available and, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely,
So,
Well, that's fantastic. Well, it sounds like you had a really good experience, with
yeah,
it.
it definitely was. Yeah, and like I've said to you before, your class had a big influence on me. Um, the Some of the other classes, like the guitar mastery, helped me with efficiency. The original single string class, the first quarter, helped me get just the basic shapes down and stuff like that. But yours helped me a lot with thinking about the improvising and how to improvise in more of a logical fashion. And even if I wasn't doing literally what you're doing, just that approach, I think I've carried through my playing of just, I'm going to logically break things down and then put it back together and, to create new ideas on it.
Yeah, well, that's good. Well, thank you. Well, I think all part of that, whatever I was teaching or other people when we taught those things, is it because as we had broken it down for ourselves over years,
Mhm.
we didn't have a mandate like in a college where they have to teach certain things, state requirements, and trying to follow the classical pattern. We could say, look, here's how I broke it down, and here's how that all this stuff isn't scary. It's still, you know, you
Right.
know.
Yeah. Um, yeah, and I really appreciate the approach in general because I had gone to university for a couple quarters and I had gone to Voltech, and it reminded GAT reminded me much more of like a vocational school that you're
It
teaching
is. It was a
practical
vocational school.
elements
Yeah, yeah.
of guitar playing. We're not going to get into all this esoteric theory that's might help you at some point, but you might never use. Everything was just okay. This is practical. This is how you're what you need to do to get better.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
appreciate
No,
that.
that isn't that great? Yeah, that's the whole part of the, yeah. I think you pinpoint there, you're right. It's just stuff and you can play it and it's no, uh
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the magic of it. I mean, we there's so many stuff but yeah, the intricacies of it, I just, I mean, yeah, and that was the whole premise behind it. Everybody had their approaches that they reached things and they studied and learned and did things, and everybody had studied with other teachers over the years, and we were professionals, and we had ways to look at it, or ways that we had learned it one way and then we learned it another way that was more efficient. And by the time you saw it, yeah, everybody knew how they approached it, and it's the
Right.
yeah, it's a crazy. I mean, it's interesting because like Larry Carlton, which only came for seminars and stuff, right? But when
Mhm.
he was really young playing guitar, and a guy, he was playing like a G seventh, and you read those stories, and then he looked, and it was like an E triad over G, and he goes, "What's this?" So he finds out it's a 13th chord with a flat nine, but he goes, "God, if you could just play a triad with this G on top, and then you put it, you see, and so then all of a sudden it opened his mind up to do all those little melodies, and yeah, it's all part of the.
Yeah. And yeah, when I got out there, that was one thing I was doing a lot because a lot of the bigger arpeggios and stuff, again, I was trying to keep things simple because there's so much going. So I was a lot of times using sevenths and triads combined together to make bigger ones rather than actually memorize bigger shapes.
Yeah, exactly, and
That's
that's what you do, the tetrachord thing where we just divide everything up. Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, so and that's always kind of stuck with me. That I like combining a bunch of little shapes, single octave shapes, to create something bigger. You
yeah,
know, rather than necessarily always memorize big shapes, even though those have their place too. But
yeah.
uh, I think I just find it much easier to use smaller arpeggios and have them blend in with your scales and your other things than it feels like if you do this huge arpeggio, it just stands out and it's hard to make that as
Yeah,
musical.
and it's meant for, and look, piano players, it's a simple thing for them. If
Mhm.
you see a piano player do this and play all the way across the guitar, right?
Yeah,
And so they play, I mean, the piano, and they play like 4 or 5 octave arpeggio. To them, there's one octave here, second here, and all they realize is they just did 5 steps for 5 octaves. Well, we're doing,
right,
and we
right.
go, God, I went to the moon and back, and instead they go, I'm just doing this, and they
Yeah,
just
right.
prance
The shape
along
doesn't
like
change.
it's not a, yeah, yeah, it's a,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Our shapes change as we change octaves and fingerings,
Yeah, they change
but
and the stuff, and then once you learn that code, it's like, yeah,
but it also gives more options, I think, too. So
yeah.
I'm happy for
Well,
other.
it does because we can change the timbre and we can find other fingerings where they're stuck with one fingering. The only thing that is good for them, right, is that I hit one note, it's one finger. Guitar, I want to play one note. Unless I'm tapping, 2 hands, one note. 2 hands, one note. So it's like a tennis player when they do the double backhand where they hold the thing. I've
Mhm.
got to use both. I
Yeah,
can't do this. I have to hold both hands. And yeah, that's the part of the guitar
yeah. It's
everyone has but so it seems like you got that was very effective for you. It worked out good for the
yeah. Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, it put me on the right path, I think, and gave me enough foundation that I could then create my own drills, create my own things from that because I understood the fundamentals enough. And then let me just say thank you for being here. It was great talking to you on it, and we'll be talking more on future topics in the future.
Absolutely. Or if you have some of your friends want to send in a topic, or you think of something, you give it to me, and then I can definitely give you a broad range of
Sure.
things